Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you my top 10 favorite non-fiction books from 2023. My top 10 favorite fiction books of 2023 video has already been published. I'll link it in the iCards as well as down in the description, so please do check it out if you're interested. In this video, I'll talk about the 10 most useful and close to my heart books in the non-fiction category, and it has all kinds of non-fiction books like memoirs, self-help, personal development and a lot more. And if I have specific videos for any of the books that I'm talking about in this video, all of them will be linked in the description, so please do check them out if you're interested. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. So starting with the list, the book at number 10 is an autobiographical fiction, but I'm considering this as a non-fiction book because it talks more about the author's own life, but in a fictional kind of way with a twist. I'm going to consider this as non-fiction, and it is Hippie by Paulo Coelho, in which the author talks about his hippie life in his early and late 20s and what all he did during that time. It is basically just this journey from his hometown to different parts of the world and what all he has experienced with the other hippies and just other people across the world as a whole. It felt very fresh and super original to me, and everything that the author talks about here happening to the main character has actually happened to him, but he has just changed a little bit of the chronological order of the events and the names of the people to maintain the anonymity of the events as well as the people who are involved in his life. It felt like a very open story in which the author talks about his own life without covering anything and keeping anything away, and putting it out there so that people who are like him can relate to it, at the same time understand what kind of people hippies are and breaking some of the stereotypes that are being said about them via pop culture and all other such media. I did not rate it 5 stars though, it was a 4-star read for me, and I think it was quite good for what it was aiming to be. At number 9, we have an audiobook, and this also kind of a self-development or personal development book which can be read by anyone. Especially if you're working in the corporate industry, I think this is a book you need to read. I'm very late to the party and I've read it only 3 years after it got published, which is Queeristan by Parmesh Shahani, which talks about the inclusion of LGBTQ people and personnel inside the corporate workspace. The author himself has narrated the book, and I should say he is very funny, okay? The way in which he makes certain things sound with the tone of his voice and his writing is very poignant. He cuts straight to the point. At the same time, he keeps certain things lightweight and fluffy so that while delivering his point precisely to us, he does not make us feel like it is very heavy or difficult to follow. I personally think all the things that the author says out in this book should not be things that need to be said to people, and we should just know it by ourselves as human beings. But the way in which the author has written this book and included people from different sexualities and sexual orientations, at the same time bringing those kind of people from different classes and races of life into this single book was really nice. I learned so much out of this book, and this is not one book which you can read once and get all out of. You have to read it like 2 or 3 more times in order to get everything that the author is delivering to us here. I'm sure I'll be getting a physical copy of this one and reread it sometime in the future. So it is easily one of my favorite non-fiction books from 2023. The next one is kind of a collection of short stories, but it's not a short story collection because it just talks about the various events that happened in the author's life during the COVID lockdown in 2020 and 2021. And the book has Onam in an IT by Anjana Menon, in which the author talks about her experience in the COVID lockdown in Kerala. She is a person who actually lives in Delhi, but because of the lockdown, she had to move back home along with her brother to her parents' house, and she stayed there. How her self-isolation was for the first 2 to 3 weeks inside her own house, and how it changed her entire perception of the world is narrated through various incidents inside this book. Now, my family is half from Kerala and half from Tamil Nadu, so I am half Keralite if we go in that way, and my Keralite half just got attached to this book so much because it was very relatable for me. Even though I live in Chennai, I know a lot of things that the author talks about here because all of those things happen in my home too. It is easily one of the books which is very close to my heart from 2023, and it is also even more special because one of you guys recommended me to read this in one of my live streams. I just picked it on a whim and started reading it, and I was not able to put this book down at all again, okay? I ended up reading the entire book in just one day during my commute to and from work, and it was a delight for me to read. I want to see if this author has any other books out there, and I want to pick them up too because I just loved her writing more than anything in this one. So it's easily one of my favorite books from 2023. At number 7, we have a self-help book that can be super useful for anyone who's struggling with their mental health, which is most of us people out there in the world. And it is Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. This author is super popular for her Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. I'm sure you have watched some of her reels and you might just not know her name. After you finish watching this video, go forward and search for Dr. Julie on YouTube and Instagram and you'll know her immediately. And each and everything that she shares in her social media handles and in YouTube are actual practical things that you can practice on a daily basis or when necessary, that are taught to people who are in therapy. It is the exact same in this one also, and more than anything I can say that this book is something which will not help you deal with your past trauma or your childhood memories, but the everyday things that you face which bring your mood down and don't let you function as efficient as you can. I'm sure that most of us have to deal with everyday low mood and sadness at least to some extent, and by practicing most of the things that the author teaches here, which just require a little bit of time and effort from our side, I think we can make our health streamlined and proper, not just mentally but also physically. You can see I have put on a lot of tabs in this book because it has so many useful tips. So I'd suggest everyone to just go for and give it a try because I think many more people need to read this. The next one is yet another self-help book, but this is on physical health and not on mental health, and it is also by an Indian author. So if you are also an Indian like me, I'm sure you'll be able to relate to most of the things that the author talks about here, and she just makes it clear that you need not look fit in order to be healthy. The book is Don't Lose Out, Work Out by Rujita Divekar. It is again available to listen for free in the Audible Plus catalog. Both this one and Pieristan are available for free in the catalog, so go forward and try it. I'm not sure whether this is narrated by the author or not, but it is just phenomenal. It exactly explains us how losing weight is not a part of being fit at all. You can weigh any number of kilos and still be healthy and still keep your body flexible and strong. And that is the only thing that the author keeps on emphasizing while she talks about so many different things inside this book. It is a wholesome book which even gives you a workout plan that you can do no matter how busy you are with life. And after reading this book, I have stopped worrying about how heavy I am and just concentrate on how I can develop my muscle strength and flexibility so that I can keep my body healthy, flexible and strong even when I'm old. Also, don't forget to follow her on Instagram because she provides a lot of useful tips that can be practiced by each and every person out there. It is simply an eye-opening book for me, and it was also recommended to me by my brother. At number 5, we have a very cute little beautiful book that is actually about books itself, and it is The Clothing of Books by Jhumpa Lahiri. I think I've recommended it at least like 10 or 15 times in the past year itself because this is one book which is very close to my heart because I'm a book lover, and this book in specific just talks about book covers alone. It does not talk about the actual content inside the book, but the covers of the books which are designed by people who are not anyone that is actually involved in the creation of the story. There are so many beautiful lines inside the 65-page long little book, okay? You can literally read this book in an hour or so, but I took my time and relished it. I think I read it in like 2 or 3 hours, but each and every minute I spent reading this book is totally worth it, okay? It's a tiny book and it is a bit expensive for its size and the number of pages that it has. But if you're someone like me who likes the beauty of words, and if you want to see the beauty of words in a book, you need to try this one. It also feels like the plight of an author when it comes to deciding the covers of the translated versions of their books, because translated versions are published just because of the different geographical regions in the world, right? And it's practically not possible for every author to translate their own books into so many different languages. This book just showed me how brilliant a writer Jhumpa Lahiri is, and it makes me want to read all of her books out there. I have a plan to read all of her books in 2024. Let's just wait and see if it's going to happen or not. But if you've not read this book yet, even after me suggesting this literally for like 10 to 15 times in the channel, I think it's time for you to go forward and pick it up. At number 4, we have one book which talks about a ability or trait that I admire a lot, and it is Grit by Angela Duckworth, which talks about the characteristic grit which we have to develop no matter whom we are in life, okay? The author basically says that in order to be successful in life, you need not be rich, you need not be privileged, and you need not be talented. You just have to have high grit levels. Every person who's successful out there, whether they have money or not, whether they are talented or not, from the eyes of others, or if they are hardworking or not, one thing all of them have in common is that they have a very high grit level. Grit is basically perseverance and not hesitating to try once again just because you failed on a particular try. There is so much scientific research that has been done by this author for this book, and trust me, it will just change your perspective towards life and make you understand that no matter what you want in life, if you keep working hard, if you keep trying new ways to attain the goal that you want without causing any kind of harm to anyone, there is such a high probability that you will end up getting that in your life. It is such a powerful book and I want to reread it many more times in the future. Again, this is another book which I've tapped a lot because I got so much out of this one. So if you've not read Grit yet and if you think that you're not talented enough to be as successful as you want to be, it is high time you go forward and read this book. Moving on to the top 3 books that I read in 2023 in the non-fiction category. Now, this is one book which I got as a recommendation from Aanchal Rani. She talked about this book in one of her videos, and this is also one concept which I believe in a lot and I've been trying so hard this year to do a lot of things that are based on this concept, which is manifestation. And the book that I want to talk about is Manifest by Roxy Nafousi, which is basically a 7-step guide to manifest anything that you want in life and anyone you want in life. It is a very practical book, okay? It does not talk about manifestation just in the facet of spirituality, but talks about it in a super practical way of all the things that you can do on a daily basis in order to change yourself one step at a time, one day at a time, so that you reach where you want to be by being compassionate to yourself, by being loving to yourself, at the same time being strict with yourself when it needs to be done. It is such a practical book, and anything that the author says here is not impractical to do in the world. I have read a few books on manifestation before this one, but most of them were just based on having the belief and having the faith and hope that what you want will happen. But this one just goes this extra mile and tries to explain us that everything that you want will happen, but it's not just because you want it. It is because you have the ability to give yourself what you want, and it's not always up to the world. It is super practical, super positive, and if you're someone who's new to manifestation and is trying to learn more about it, this is definitely one book you need to read. And at position 2, we have one book which swept me off my feet again. I didn't believe that I could become an author's fan after reading just one book by them. And this book proved me wrong and made me a fan of this author because it was out of the world. And it also talks about one of the queens from our own country, which is The Last Queen by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. This book is something which I did not have that high expectations for when I went into it. But the way in which the author has written the story of this wonderful queen, Jindan Kaur, who's the last queen of Punjab, is just super brilliant, okay? It talks about her life from her childhood till the end of her life in the most honest way possible. It talks about all the wrong things that she did. It talks about all the great, wonderful, amazing, brilliant things that she did and how talented she was when it comes to politics and taking care of an entire kingdom. It also talks about the love between her and her husband, Ranjit Singh. It is definitely one of the best books that I've read so far, and I also want to read all of the other books written by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni after reading this one, because this is something which just took me away to another world and showed me the richness of our country. I'm not saying that I don't know about the wealth, beauty and prosperity of our country before reading this book, but there are certain things which will just show us that what we have is much more than we think it to be, right? This book was one such thing for me, and the writing of the author is something which you can just take like a handful of a great food and just consume as such. I loved each and every small thing about this book, and I did not want it to end because I loved it to such a great extent. So yeah, this definitely deserves the position 2 in this list. And at last, at position 1, we have the book which just felt so close to my heart. Of all the books that I read in 2023, this is the book which straight away went into my heart and got a place in there because it is something which is very close to my life, because I have seen so many things that the author talks about here in front of my eyes happening to my own mother. And the book is Cancer, You Picked the Wrong Girl by Shormista Mukherjee, which is a cancer memoir in which the author talks about how she was diagnosed for cancer, how she was treated for it, and her recovery in a super honest and humorous way. While being humorous, she does not lighten the fact that cancer is a dangerous disease. It is something which can take a huge toll on not just your health, but your family's health as a whole. I'm the child of a cancer survivor. My mother had cancer when I was in 10th standard 10 years back. I'm so grateful and glad that she made a good recovery and we are happy and healthy right now. And there are certain scenes inside this book, especially when it comes to the treatment of cancer, which took me back to those days and made me remember all those things that happened in my own family. More than anything, the thing that the author keeps on stressing here is that cancer is hard. The treatment for it will be super difficult for that person who's going through it to take and make the recovery. Even though the medicines are out there and even though we have specialists to help us and guide us through this disease and get us cured of it, the one thing that the person who's affected needs the most is the confidence that can be given to them only by the people who are surrounding them. I remember very well that when my mother had cancer, none of us had this thought that she will not make a recovery. We all for a fact knew that she will get out of it, she will be treated and she will make a proper recovery. And this book gave me that kind of hope and that kind of, warmth in my heart that I saw in my own family all those years back. All that happened when I was 15 years old and I'm 25 right now. And it still stays with me with the same amount of vigor and vibrance that it had back then. I'm so very glad that I read this book, and it is also something which I bought just because it was available at the cheap price on Amazon for one particular day. There are certain books that the universe just sends it your way, right? I personally think this is one such book for me in my life. I don't know whether I'll be reading this book or not, but it easily has a very special place in my heart, and it will also remain as one of my most favorite non-fiction books ever. So yes guys, those are my top 10 favorite non-fiction books that I read in 2023. 2023 has been a great year for me in terms of reading and especially buying books. I have met with a lot of beautiful books, and there were a few which did end up disappointing me. But as a whole, I should say that of all the books that I read, easily 90% of the books were really brilliant. It was difficult for me to just pick 10 books for these two videos. If I end up picking a lot more, I know that I could not stop myself from picking like 20 or 30 books, which is impractical for a single video. So I just went forward and picked the top 10 books for both these lists, both fiction as well as non-fiction. I just hope I get to read a lot more of such brilliant, amazing and great books in 2024 too. And I hope that you also got some good recommendations from this 10 book list. Don't forget to let me know your favorite books from 2023 in the comments below so that I can get some great recommendations from you guys as usual. And if you got some good recommendations from this video and if you did enjoy watching it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.